In the description of this video, you will find a link to where you can acquire a 215 brand bolo list that I've spent the past 3 weeks compiling for you. And you can acquire it completely free of cost with no strings attached. Or you can elect to give me whatever you want for it. It's pay what you want. So this is a list of, like I said, 215 bolo brands specific to men's clothing. So no hats, no accessories, no shoes, and not really any sports jerseys, but shirts, jackets, pants, shorts, activewear, sweaters, suits, and on and on. Clothing. 215 brands broken down in tiers of sell-through rate. So I like to source stuff with 100% sell-through or more. I've organized these brands based on how much demand there is for them. So about half the list, I would say, roughly is above 100% sell-through just on a brand level. So these are brands that you can buy to resell and pretty much be assured that you're going to be able to flip whatever it is that you found within 90 days. So the other half of the list is going to be brands that are sub 100% sell-through on a brand level, but have categories within the brands that do satisfy that 100% sell-through benchmark, or are worth so much money that it is worth picking them up even if the sell-through is relatively low. Or there are categories within the brands where both of those things or either of those things is true. And for each of those brands, there's also a list of categories within that brand that you should have some trepidation about. So stuff that won't necessarily sell as quickly or for as much money. For example, a lot of brands, t-shirts are not as good of sellers as jackets. For a minority of brands, the inverse is true. Certain brands, shorts don't sell at all. Other brands, only shorts will sell. So I went into eBay and I did very careful, very tedious and boring, but thoroughgoing market research on a category basis within each of these brands to give you a sense of what's selling and what isn't. So when I made the product, which is called the Menswear Manifesto, I made it with a goal in mind of, would I be able to hand this to someone that I hired and have them go source for me, assuming that they had some basic level of experience and competence reselling clothing. And I think I've accomplished that. I think that's true. If you're brand new to selling clothing, or if you've sold women's clothing, but you don't really have your sea legs when it comes to men's clothing, this will be perfect for you. And this will be a big head start, at least in the direction of my particular business model, which is not the only model. I focus on high sell-through, not everybody does. When you click the link in the description of the video, it'll take you to this page. Give you a little synopsis here of what's inside. And right here, name a fair price, anywhere from 0 to 100 million billion dollars. Click buy this. If you do choose to pay me, thank you very much, and it'll ask you for some payment information here. Otherwise, you type in your email address, click get, it'll automatically redirect you to a Google document, which is where the manifesto lives. You'll also get an email that has a big green button in it that will take you to the Google document. And let me show you the document in question. Here it is, the Menswear Manifesto. It is 69 pages long, 215 brands, and I really could not be prouder of it. I take you through a little bit of my business model, give you some general recommendations if you really are a brand new reseller for what to look for in clothing, things to take seriously. Here are the brands. Here is the first tier. I called it God tier. This is brands that are over 500% sell-through. So these are brands that are absolute no-brainers. Anybody can resell them. Doesn't matter what you find. It's instant money. This is stuff that is so in demand that you can't go wrong. Here's an example of a brand. So the first brand in the whole document is Bad Birdie, which is a golf wear brand. Currently 950% sell-through as of the time that I ran those numbers. I also gave a general average sale price. This is just an estimate. So between 50 and 75 bucks, most of their pieces sell. And I say, just go for everything. And there's a little bit of commentary here from me. And scrolling down, that's a pretty small tier. We're down to diamond tier, 300 to 499%. A few more of those. Platinum tier, even more of those. A lot more of those. A lot more of those. Gold tier, this is kind of my bread and butter range. And then silver tier is the rest of it. So it's stuff that either has really low sell-through or an extraordinarily high average selling price. So it will be worth sitting on, or it will be stuff that you will have a lot of wiggle room to make quick flips out of. Meaning, let's say it's a brand like Gives and Hawks, which is a suit maker. Typically their suits sell for hundreds of dollars. It tends to be overpriced on the market, on the used market, or priced high enough, I should say, that if you chose to come in and undercut the market by 50 to 100 bucks, you could stand a reasonably good chance of making a quick flip out of it, really abbreviating that timeline of how long it'll take to sell and making decent return on your investment in a short amount of time. So there's lots of brands that fit that profile, and I have a lot of them in here. There's also really huge brands like, here's Canali. Canali is a pretty big brand. They make suits, they make dress shirts, but it's kind of full of potholes. Not all of it has that high of sell-through. Not all of it is worth that much money. So as you can see, I go into more detail here in the description of what to look for and what not to look for. That plays out on an even bigger scale with stuff like Nike, which got its own little AP placement essay here. So a great example of a general brand that has lower than 100% sell-through, but there are both categories within it that have over 100% sell-through and or really high average selling price. And here's the breakdown. So we have sell-through 60%, average sale price is low, sub $25. Be on the lookout for Pro Combat, Nike Pro, collaborations with streetwear brands, Nike SB, which is Nike skateboarding, a line called Undercover Lab that's sub 100% sell-through but sells for really strong money, Nike tracksuits, Nike jackets, varsity jackets, vintage Nike, and Air Jordan clothing. And then be on the lookout for, in a negative way, just general basic pieces. But also I give you a breakdown down here of how to look up the style codes for Nike pieces. So some of these brands, not all of them, but some of them, I go into pretty hyper specific detail like this and give you really an autopsy of the brand. In terms of what I recommend buying, I used two different methodologies. The first is I went into the sold page and I listed from highest price to lowest price, and I looked at everything on that first page, which is all the stuff that sold for the most money in the past 90 days in pre-owned condition. And if there were really big exceptional sales, or if I saw the same thing crop up 2 or 3 times, I included that under Seek. So I also went in category by category and looked at sell-through rate for stuff that might be worth slightly less money, not exceptionally above market money, but has really high sell-through. And both of those are represented in that Seek line. In terms of proceed with caution, I worked off of personal experience, and also I went category by category again and looked at sell-through. So the big manholes that you don't want to fall into are included here. There are always exceptions to every rule. These are just broad strokes recommendations. If you found, let's say, a 511 tactical polo shirt, which is here under proceed with caution, but it was size 5 extra tall, I would buy that. Or if it had some big rifle company logo embroidered on the chest that was aftermarket, I would buy that as well if it was a polo shirt. So these are not hard and fast rules in either direction, either in terms of buying, which is more reliable, or not buying. All of it you should take slightly with a grain of salt. These are just general recommendations. I calculated sell-through for each brand in pre-owned condition. So all of these numbers are based on pre-owned. Obviously, new with tag stuff is going to sell for a little bit more money and sell more quickly. But all of these numbers reflect owned, pre-owned, used clothing meaning that this is directly relevant to thrifting the majority of the stuff that you're going to thrift, or garage selling the majority of the stuff that you're going to garage sale, because most of it's going to be used. It's also specific in 99% of the cases to the men's clothing category, so it's as unpolluted as possible by women's clothing or kids' clothing. There were a couple brands that made, I think, cycling jerseys or ski wear where they were, or scrubs actually was a big one, where they weren't actually represented barely at all in the men's clothing category, but they were still good enough brands I wanted to include them. This is just a snapshot of a moment in time. This information, as soon as I crunched the numbers, changed. So from day to day, that sell-through rate is going to fluctuate a little bit. This is just kind of broad strokes outlines of overall market behaviors right now. There's a couple of pitfalls there that you need to be aware of. So brands can come and go, sometimes really quickly. Sometimes brands can just fall off the face of the earth in terms of their sell-through. There's no way to anticipate it. It's like the stock market. Other times, other brands can take off in popularity. Also, because it's retroactively looking at sell-through over the previous 90 days, sometimes it loses a little bit of fidelity in terms of seasonality. For example, shorts were weak in a lot of brands on this list. So some experience will help you in interpreting the list to say, okay, if shorts in, let's just say, like Ralph Lauren swimwear is low right now. I don't know if that's the case. I don't recall. But let's say swim trunks from Ralph Lauren are selling dismally right now. Fast forward 2 or 3 months, that might not be the case because we're heading into summer. The warmer weather might boost the sales of those shorts. So all of this needs to be taken with a grain of salt. But I am confident in this list as a great starting point in terms of guidance to help you look stuff up live in the field and make more educated decisions based on what the market is actually doing. You can use the manifesto on desktop. You can also use it on your phone. I recommend you download the Google Docs app to use it on your phone. It's very compatible. It's responsive. It's just continuous scroll. Also, both have this feature right here, which is the document index or overview. It's a table of contents, basically, that will give you a tier-by-tier breakdown of all the brands, which are organized alphabetically within each tier. So you can just visually scan down here. Let's say you wanted to look at Cinch. Click on Cinch, and it'll take you to Cinch. If you don't want to use the document online on Google Docs, if you go to File and Download, it'll give you all of these options of other formats that you can download in. You can make an EPUB out of it, so you can use an e-reader. You can download it as a Microsoft Word document, rich text, PDF, plain text. You can just open it up in Notebook. If you follow the guidelines here, you shouldn't have that hard of a time making some money. If you do end up making some money, then consider coming back around and flipping a few herrings into my open dolphin mouth and giving me some kind of reward. Again, you're under no obligation to do so, but if it helps you out, something to think about. And I hope that it does help you out. I think that this should certainly pay for itself. And if you, again, are brand new to reselling men's clothing, then I can think of no better starting point. So thank you for watching, and I hope that it's enjoyable and helpful.